Hello class. Today we'll be reviewing Units 1 and 2, History and Methodology.
To start off, psychology can be defined as a study of behavioral and mental processes. We can trace many of psychology's current questions back through human history. These early thinkers wondered, how do our minds work? How do our bodies relate to our minds? How much of what we know comes built in, and how much is acquired through experience?
In ancient Greece, the philosopher and teacher Socrates and his student Plato concluded that knowledge is innate, born within us. Unlike Socrates and Plato, Aristotle said knowledge is not pre-existing and instead grows from experience.
In the 1600s is when modern science began to really take off. In Britain, around experiment, experience, and common sense judgment, Francis Bacon became one of the founders of modern science.
Modern science relies heavily on the scientific method in order to find cause-and-effect relationships, and this is done through empirical testing to find evidence in order to prove a theory right or wrong. But everything starts with curiosity, the desire to understand.
And turned into a testable hypothesis by asking a specific question in a clear, focused, and testable manner. For example, if one wanted to know if the consumption of a new drug would lower their cholesterol, they could hypothesize that taking the new drug would lower their high cholesterol and then run an experiment to test it.
In order to eliminate bias, all experiments should at least be single-blind. However, experiments involving drugs must be double-blind. In these cases, it is important to have a control treatment where placebos are used.
After systematically collecting data, a statistical analysis should be done to describe the data, determine probability, results due to chance, and guide inferences made from data. This will show if the data is statistically significant or not.
After the researcher concludes his or her own experiments, they should report the conclusions and publish their results. If the data was truly unbiased and meaningful, the experiment would be able to be replicated and judged by peers.
Many different ways and methods for psychological research. One is a naturalistic observation in which subjects are observed in their natural environment. Another research method is a case study, which is an extensive study of all or part of the life history of an individual. This is a research tool to suggest theories or hypotheses. They generate, not confirm one.
Research method is a survey, which is just a simple questionnaire filled out in person, on the phone, in the mail. This allows for measurements of attitudes and behaviors of large groups. The only problem surveys have is that people are likely to lie on them, and people with strong opinions are more likely to fill a survey out than someone who is indifferent.
Correlational studies show changes in one variable are associated with changes in another. A positive correlation is when two variables go in the same direction. For example, the more cigarettes I smoke, the better chance I have of getting lung cancer. A negative correlation is when both variables go in the opposite direction. For example, the more TV I watch, the lower my test grade will be.
Now, the roots of psychology began with Wilhelm Wundt in 1832, when he opened the first lab for psychological research. Wundt used introspection, where you would examine your thoughts and think about thinking. He believed personality is built on experiences, the idea known as structuralism.
William James founded the first American psychology lab and believed that humans adapt to their environment and that your personality and behavior is based on what you have to do to survive, also known as functionalism.
Stanley Hall, a student of Wundt and James, organized psychology in the USA in 1887. Hall founded the American Journal of Psychology. The journal allowed for psychological studies to be published and for further research to be done.
Biological approach is the study of mental processes in chemistry. Every behavior, feeling, and thought is a physical event that happens in the brain.
Sigmund Freud emphasized the ways emotional responses to childhood experience and our unconscious thought processes affect our behavior. In order to study the unconscious, Freud used free association as a way to relax patients so that a train of thought could be followed into the unconscious. Freud believed the mind to be mostly hidden like an iceberg. Our conscious awareness is like the part that floats above the water, and our unconscious is the massive part below. This interest in exploring the unconscious led to the birth of the psychoanalytic perspective.
Then came along the behavioral perspective, which only looked at behavior and no mental processes. In the mid-1800s, Pavlov accidentally came across classical conditioning, learning by association that involves the conditioning of innate bodily reflexes with new stimuli, while studying digestion in dogs.
In 1913, John B. Watson turned to behaviorism, in which only observable behavior is the proper subject for investigation. He wanted to see if Pavlov's classical conditioning worked on humans, so he set up situations in a lab with a 9-month-old little Albert to condition him to fear a rat, but he conditioned him to fear all furry white things.
Thorndike, a student of James, created the law of effect, in which he studied if behaviors followed with satisfaction were either stamped in or if they were not stamped out. He motivated Skinner and operant conditioning.
Operant conditioning is a type of learning in which behavior is strengthened if followed by a reinforcer or diminished if followed by a punisher.
Our next perspective is the humanistic perspective, which was the study of the whole person. It emphasized self-actualization, the development of your full potential, freedom, and good in all. In 1954, Abraham Maslow developed the hierarchy of needs of motivation, in which all basic needs had to be met first before moving up on the triangle.
Along with the humanistic perspective came Carl Rogers, who believed that people needed to feel loved and worthy no matter what. Going back to Wundt and Aristotle is the cognitive perspective, which talks of how we process or transform information, mental processes of thinking, knowing, perceiving, attending, and remembering. How we think affects our body.
Lastly is the eclectic approach, which utilizes all branches of psychology to help people.
Regardless of which perspective a psychologist uses, when conducting experiments involving animals and humans, a code of ethics must be followed. This code of ethics has 4 main principles, the first being informed consent, the idea that participants need to be informed that they are being experimented on. 2, protection from harm and discomfort. 3, confidentiality of the information gathered from the experiment and participants. 4, debriefing all participants after the experiment has concluded, explaining what has been researched.